Welcome to the Mom and podcast. We're your hosts, Suzanne Kearns
and Missy Stevens. We want to help you through everything that happens in the ellipses, from your professional life to your emotional health.
You're a mom and so much more. Let's figure out what comes next together.
Welcome to the Mom and podcast. I'm Missy Stevens, mom and writer, foster child advocate, and this week, explorer of voiceover acting.
That is so cool.
Humbling experience.
That is humbling. So
I don't know anything.
You have all these secret lives that I don't know about. And I'm Suzanne Kearns, mom and writer, LGBTQ and sex ed advocate. And today I am a legislative bill reviewer for the state of Texas. There are already 50 anti-LGBTQ bills here in Texas. So yeah, we'll have some links in the show notes too, in case you live in Austin and want to learn more for the Informed Parents of Austin group that I run. Yeah, there's going to be some work to do. But today we are so excited to welcome Megan Young to the show. Megan is a trained life coach specializing in life transitions and grief. Through her own personal story of loss, she has discovered the key to creating a fulfilling life alongside her grief and new life chapters. Megan provides her clients with guidance, tools, and perspective while navigating grief. She's also the author of Life After Loss workbook series for human and pet death, available on Amazon. Megan and her husband have two sons, Lincoln and Towns, an elderly cat named Dudley. That's so cute. And chickens. Oh, don't tell anybody that. They're going to be coming for your eggs.
I know. Right.
They reside in the Texas Hill Country outside of Austin. And Megan loves to lend support and encouragement to her community, family, and friends. Welcome. We are so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I listen to you guys and I feel like, you know, you have that listen.
Learn. We can never remember that.
Yeah. And I feel like you guys are a lot of the listen and to learn. So it's nice to be here. Yeah.
I love that.
Well, we got a little glimpse at you in your bio, but we'd love it if you can give us a slightly deeper Megan 101 and talk about how you got to where you are today.
Well, it's not as streamlined as one would think for grief, especially when I feel like death and grief are just part of my life daily. And now at this point, it's very normal. And it's almost too normal in my household. Like it's the conversation. So I started in the fashion industry when I was younger. I went to school for it, all that good stuff. Was working at the World Trade Center in Dallas, and all of it just didn't seem like, you know, you get to a certain point and it just seemed like this is not it. I thought I did all these things and I'm here and it doesn't seem like this is me. So I found my first life coach when I was 22. And that was before like life coaching was a thing, I believe.
Yeah.
And she changed my life.
Wow.
Put me on a path that was really fulfilling. It was still in fashion, but sports. I have a sports background. My coaches all in my family for tennis. So it made more sense. So really how it led here, long story short, went through the career of fashion, then went into sports with the United States Tennis Association. And within all of that, which was very fulfilling and I loved it, the personal side that led me here was I lost my sister in a car wreck. It was actually here in Austin.
So
thank you. And I'm the youngest of three girls, and it completely shook us to the core. We're all 2 years apart. We're very, very close. She was about to get married. So 3 months before her wedding to a man she's been with for 10 years, we had to unplan, if that's a word, a wedding and plan a funeral. And that experience in itself was one that will obviously shake everything you had going for you at the time and all the planning that you were doing. It literally gives you a new set of lenses, as a lot of people with grief will tell you. And so from that part on, I began my healing journey. And that took years of so many different forms of therapy, from traditional forms of therapy, energy work, chiropractics, you name it. I've done a lot of stuff, and a lot of this stuff I did just to try, because of the three girls, I was always the seeker, the one who wanted
Mhm.
to, I was seeking, there's got to be another way. Like, this is not how I want to live my life with this
Right.
heartbreak. So,
Hmm.
I feel like that part of me has always been there. But I had my first child in 2016. And right before that, I had already made the decision that I was going to become a life coach. So I went through the training. And then once he was born, I decided to go off and leave the USTA and go full time in life coaching. So I've started out with the life transition piece because that's what I know. I walk the walk. I have all of the strategies that not only worked for me, but the things that I've learned. So then life had another little segment they wanted me to do. And a lot of people that were coming to me had lost someone significant in their life. So I found myself helping people in a grief point where they were ready to find a way to live alongside their grief
Yeah.
versus a lot of people need to start at some point and then maybe gradually get there because grief is different for every single person. But mainly these people were just fed up. There had to be something else, kind of like I was saying with my own. So then it turned into the grief work. And then the books kind of wrote themselves because I
Yeah.
had clients to stem from of what really actually worked, what created the movement for them, what created the coping mechanisms for them. And so yeah, so I've just been in this space for 5 years and then a life coach for 7.
Wow.
And yeah, so that's where I am as far as professionally. And I think that the life transition point of different careers that you may have, it's never too late to
Hmm.
change that up. And
It's my favorite thing to say.
yeah,
Never too late.
Yes.
exactly. Yes.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you what made you decide to focus your energy in the area of grief, but you answered that so beautifully already.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you did kind of weave in this point of so many of us do automatically associate grief with losing someone. And I know that you have the loss of a pet book now. So whether it be a human family member or a furry family member,
Mhm.
but in looking through your services, we were really fascinated by the fact that you do so much around life transitions. But I think there actually can be a grief intertwined with those life transitions,
Yeah.
especially if it's a loss of an identity or this vision of what you had for your life that is not coming to fruition. And I loved it. I had never heard this category, but one that you had on your website was lost professional. I thought that was
Oh,
what a beautiful way of putting it.
oh,
So,
yes.
That is
Yes.
what I am.
yeah, there's lost professional and mothers who need to redefine their lives. So, I mean, we
Yeah.
could probably talk about those for the rest of the week,
That's
but can
for
you
sure.
touch on those a little bit for us?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I've been both. So, I think that a lot of people don't realize that grief is existing within that space, especially when you have your first child and
Mm,
you're really transitioning into the mother that you want to be. And for those who maybe did some work prior to kind of define what that is, it may come a little easier to understand that. But if you didn't, which is okay, you had this opportunity, even if your kids are 18, to define what that means to you, how this 18-year-old even is going to be a part of your life from here on out.
Mhm.
And by the way, the empty nesting grief is real and strong. But
don't tell me that my
um
daughter's going to
I'm
college.
sorry.
But you still have one
But
at home. You
there's
don't have
hope.
to empty nest yet.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
exactly.
Half a
Yeah.
nest.
But the lost professional, which a lot of people faced during COVID and
Oh yeah.
2020, and then the space in which maybe you were a stay-at-home mom for a long time and want to enter back into that workforce. And then you're there and this grief of like moving into a new transition that maybe you chose. So
Mhm.
even if you are choosing something, even if you're choosing to move or choosing another profession or choosing to be at home with your children, your family,
Mhm.
it still can produce grief. And I think that that's where people get really confused. So it's like, I made this choice, I'm good with it. And then I have this grief. And really what that means is, what about the old life are you grieving? Like specifically, I mean, be very, very
Mm.
truthful with yourself. If you go back to one thing, let's just say it's something simple like I miss brunches or, I miss a certain part of my life. not just the independence, but the way that it was a little carefree or more
Mhm.
carefree or something of that nature.
I think Missy and I
Um,
both had a missing flying on airplanes like normal human beings. I didn't you?
oh my,
I had a complete
Yes.
breakdown when it was
yes.
like when my daughter was like, "We're never gonna get to like watch a movie on a plane again."
Yeah. Yeah, I had a meltdown over a bowl of cereal. I don't even really eat cereal that often, but I was eating it and my child started crying and he had like a radar attached to my meal times. And so the minute I would sit down to eat, he would wake up and cry no matter what time of day it was. And I
Crazy
thought,
having to do
I'm
that.
never, ever going to eat a bowl of cereal or anything else again without I couldn't see my way out of it. And I was really grieving just independence was what it really was.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. So those are perfect examples of really understanding what it is that you're grieving. And then the part about grief that is really important, and this is with the loss of in death or just in life in general, but is control. So
Mm.
control is what we have to gain back in some capacity because
Mm,
death in general, you can't control, right? It's the
Yeah.
one thing that's
right.
definite that you're not going to have a control over. So if that's the case, what control can I take back? And
Mm.
even if it is saying to yourself, okay, let's take the cereal example. My kid knows that I get up at this point and I have a bowl of cereal. What about taking control? I'm going to look at my day. I'm going to look at my entire day and see the points where I can have a nice lunch by myself, even if it's 2 p.m. before you go pick the kids up. But
Yeah.
whatever it is to gain some control, I'm going to have 5 minutes of reading. If that's one of your goals, that was one of my goals last year. It's just like,
Yeah.
how do you read a book when you're a mom? Right. So,
Mm.
but 5 minutes I gave myself each day. I found the pockets of time. So it's really regaining some control in your life because it does feel like it's chaotic. But the important piece to that is actually at the end of the day, realizing that you did that for yourself.
Mm,
So saying, oh, my Wednesday was my kids ate at least one decent meal.
May have been at
I
school.
yeah, I had a great day at work, or at least checklist is half done. That's the win.
mhm.
And the other win is that I found 5, 10, 20 minutes for myself. And so you're just signaling to your brain that you want more of that. So it's really
Yeah.
about creating these pathways for your brain to find more time for yourself or what you like to enjoy. And so instead of getting chaotic in the moment, your brain will find a sense of relief that for the time being, the task is kids, school, let's get it there. Because later on, I know that I'm going to fulfill a part of myself during a nap or right before bed, something that's going to help you gain at least that little control.
Mm.
Yeah.
I wonder though, right now I'm 3 and 6 year old. So I've heard so that's like the energetic, the physical part. Is
Mhm.
that right? And then it gets a
Yep.
little less physical.
It's a
Is that
real
right?
mental
Or
game. It's a real mental game after that.
okay, it's mental. Okay, yes. So that's I feel like physical would be yes, find those times when they're not there, they're not as present. Maybe they're in the next room playing, safely. Then you can find your space, zen, whatever you want to call it. The mental part of the later years, that's where I think you're going to see the most rewards if you actually carve out the time for yourself,
Mhm.
because then it's about being present in the moment that you have them, even if that is 5 minutes, 1 minute, whatever it is that you want to spend on really developing the relationship or understanding where they are in life or diffusing the situation, things like that. But you'll see that if you do take even just that gratitude wins piece that I just said at the very end of your day, that to be proud and confident in your decisions and gain that control back is something that can help with grief. And I feel like that's something that people don't realize that just the simple things in life can help with.
Yeah. One of the things we really were talking about in prepping for this is where we are in our lives, selfishly, but we're both sort
Mhm.
of sandwichy generation. We have parents who are thankfully great right now, but they are older. And then we've got kids who still need a lot. And we're grieving things like our parents aging, and we're grieving things that are happening to our children. maybe a sports disappointment, which we went through this week in our house, or college stress, whatever it is, there's a lot of emotion in our lives right now. And we are straddling this line with both sides of it. Are you seeing this with your clients? And if you
Oh,
are, how do we help model this for our kids? I mean, this is a super selfish question, but I would
well,
like
no, I mean,
this
that's, and
week to be modeling it for my son, that how we
it's a
walk through this
great,
disappointment.
it's a really great question. Well, let me divide it in two different portions of like how to help your child and then how to help yourself, because it will go hand in hand. You will feel the reward of helping your child. And,
Hmm.
I think that you can attest that you start learning a lot from them anyway. So by doing this together, it's going to feel a lot more rewarding. So the first part about the sandwich years. So I had older parents, I'm the third. So my parents are in great health, but we're doing a lot of planning right now. Right. So,
Yeah.
but I do have a lot of caregiver support grief groups. And what I see in that is the different types of grief. And you've probably heard ambiguous grief. It's the grief that you don't get closure. You're grieving at certain like
Uh,
maybe points, but you're never getting any closure because it's
Mm.
not a death, it's not an end, it's not
right.
definite. So that's where finding the things that the coping skills and the comforts in your life are really going to help. And I think there has to be an understanding of the situation first. So if it is your parent, just observing what their role is in your life and how that's going to
Mm.
change and being
Mhm.
prepared for that.
Mm.
And then understanding what role you want to be, because not every child is, I don't want to be there for their parent, I've learned. But I mean, if you do, what does that look like? Because here's the thing, once you're in it, you're deep in it. Once you're into maybe a dementia situation, once you're in a cognitive decline, everything else in between, in general, health decline, you're in it. So starting now and realizing what role is going to be really important, especially if you have different siblings, having that
Great
conversation.
advice.
The
Mm.
second thing is boundaries, because you are the keeper of your family as well.
Mhm.
So there's going to be just these defining moments that we all have in life, that these pinpoints. We're like, well, that year we know that I was completely absent because this, and this. That's going to happen. You just that in life is natural. It's okay. People, kids and parents are forgiving in a lot of nature, but you don't want to go so deep into it where your kids lose you, or your
Right.
husband or partner loses you, or your parents lose you. So how do you juggle when
Mhm.
you've been juggling so much as a parent? So I think defining your role, setting some boundaries of what are going to be even the hours that you're going to give.
Mhm.
What now is appropriate for support. And I think the major piece that every caretaker or child who is helping a parent is the guilt and the blame
Mhm.
that they will then have, just as if we had the mom guilt. Well, guess what? It's like comes back around, and you have the parent guilt.
My mom
So
says it's the gift that keeps on giving. Guilt. It's the gift that just keeps on giving.
I know. I love. It's. I think it's talked about a lot, but I think that each individual person has to realize that the guilt is going to go in a loop if you allow it
Oh,
to.
uh-huh.
So that's where I take. There's a book called Getting to Neutral, and it is by a fantastic. I mean, one of the most amazing brain trainers, if you will. He
Mm.
actually passed away last year of cancer, but his work is so amazing, and what a legacy. But it's a great book for everyone to read. He was in the sports industry, so it's definitely, there's some sports heavy,
Yeah.
references,
Uh-huh.
but he details how he was able to get to what he calls neutral, not positive, because the whole positive movement is done. Like, we're done. Okay. I'm not going to, like, let's get positive. Like, no, like, even the sports programs are like, we're not using that word anymore. We want to get to a
Fantastic.
point where it's going to be, so neutral is in the point where it's not happy, it's not sad, it's to a point that gets you out of the loop of your head, the mental game. So it
Ooh.
could be a refocus of some sort, which also helps, as you know, with toddlers,
Yes.
Like, what can I do to like get him out of here, like screaming heavily? Like, what can I do to redirect?
Yes.
And I think that this really helps with our youth as well, is refocus, redirect, getting to a neutral point where now you're looking at the facts. The second step to that is look at the facts that are in front of you. What is in your control? What's not in your control? What resources do you have in front of you? But stay with the facts only, not the what ifs, not the should haves. All of that
Right.
has to be gone. Now, this practice is going to be very draining at first, but once you teach your brain how to get to neutral, and that is going to be your default, you'll see that you don't even have to think anymore about it. It's natural for you to take a pause, if you will, and get to the facts of the situation. And this is even an emotional situation you're in. So that, I'd say, is probably the best way in the moment of distress for either you're handling your parent or you are there for your children. And it's a great lesson for your children to learn right now. It's that book. I don't know if y'all read it. It's like Calm Down Time. And there's a saying, it's like 1, 2, 3, I'm taking care of me. I'm calm as can be. And really it's the pause. It's the pause we're trying to create, the breath work we're trying to create that creates the relaxation in your brain. And to then move on and realistically look at this situation instead of allowing all of the what ifs, emotions, guilt, blame, so on and so forth take over. Because a lot of this is that you got to stick with the task at hand. And you will see, though, that in grief, the loop, which creates the prolonged grief, you'll see that that loop is not going to be there the entire time. So my loop could be that after my sister died, that I just continuously looped back around to the truck driver that hit her, and like, why her, why this time, like trying to figure it out, because we are a cause and effect society. So instead of that, I really stuck with the facts of the situation and also understood that that experience, how she died, does not define who she is in my life. So why am I focusing and looping back to that? My why is why she was here. What impact did she have in my life? There was a reason for her to be in our life. So I think that even going to your parents and, having that beautiful moment of reflection of where they are, where they were throughout your life and where they are now, and just having a better view of that in your daily life is helpful. Journaling and so on and so forth on that.
Ooh,
Does that
that
help?
answers pretty much all the questions of the universe.
I know. And I am thankful that without doing it on purpose, because we don't know what we're doing, we kind of got to that place in our household this weekend. Like, we had a disappointment. I spiraled big time to the what ifs, whys. Why did this happen this way? And we're trying to what is going on? We're diving into all of this. And we finally got to the place last night. So it took more than the weekend then, I guess. But we got to the place last night where we realized we need to look at just the facts. And we only have these facts. So all we've got to work with, and we can only control our reaction. We can only control what we do going forward. And it changed things for me. Like, I went to bed with a kind of calmer, not totally there. I mean, I'm still working through it, but calmer overall aspect, and was able to fall asleep. And I think the same for my child. He bopped off today to school, in a better place.
That's I'm glad you said that as far as the weekend, and that you don't feel completely, it hasn't processed completely.
Right.
We want to fix, we want to know that grief's going to go away. We want to know all these things. And the thing is you have to trust yourself and your instincts, especially as women. I feel like have really strong instinct in life. And so you have to really trust that and listen to that, give it the time and space, and respect it. Because if you don't respect what your instinct is telling you or what this emotion is driving, and giving it, again, that weekend, that week, that 2 weeks, and if you stop seeking or listening, that's
Mm,
when it's going to blow up. But if you
yeah.
continuously work towards finding relief or coping, I promise you, I've been through from death of, grief to a month ago, I was having to completely rebuild our life as a family as far as our structure with my husband's work schedule and then
Yeah.
I mean, so that's just a minute way that you're having to rebuild and then recreate a better mindset around it.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, but it was painful. It was so painful to do.
Change is
And
hard.
it is. It's so hard. And
Yep.
but I knew that if I used that pain to push through and keep seeking and listen to my instinct, I would find the answer. It's when I
Mm,
give in to the pain and just be like, yeah, okay, like it's
this
painful and
just
I can't, I'm
sucks.
just gonna, yeah, that's when you're going to lose sight of what your body, your instinct, your life is telling you. So
Oh,
keep pushing, finding ways. We are such a good information society.
yeah.
So why not utilize all that we have? I have this amazing chiropractor in Austin.
Oh.
She's changed my life. She's more than a chiropractor. She one day, I've been through a lot of therapy. Um, one day she's adjusting and she's like, who told you that you needed to grow up when you were younger? Like little. Like you need to grow up and, grow up. I'm hearing grow up. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm the third born. I was always pushed, even if it wasn't my parents' intentions. It
Mm.
was like my grandparents say, do it yourself. Da, 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 da. So from that, I've been very independent. So when I become a
Mhm.
Mhm.
mother, having to have two little boys, so dependent on me, it was a huge struggle to
Yeah.
have that kind of attachment. And so I had to realize that my own childhood was coming out in a way I didn't even realize. But that's the thing. I'm always up for new challenges of what can we do to be better.
Mhm.
And even if it's a friend who just has the best listening ear,
Mhm.
go to it,
Mhm.
utilize it and find a way through it, talk your way through it even because it's
Yeah.
it's just about getting to that point of where it's very, very painful, but maybe we're finding some solutions or finding coping skills. The books that
Yeah.
I have as far as coping skills, so the books are created where the majority of it's you tell your story. So there's 5 questions in each of them, and it prompts you to really understand your grief. And the more you understand your grief, whether it be the loss of a loved one, pet, job, whatever, the more you understand it, the more people will not dictate it.
Mm.
How many
Oh,
times
God.
has
Mhm.
someone been like, where's the old you? Or
Yeah.
isn't it time to move on? Or
Mm.
even like the little hints of get over it, whatever that looks like.
Ugh.
Or like I
Um,
find that like what's the word I'm trying to think of where like basically they're trying to qualify and quantify your grief. Like there are other worse
yes.
things. What is going on with you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Great,
Mhm.
great example. Yes. That just diminishes all the work that you do anyway as
Mhm.
well. So if I was really strong in anything, if I was a specialist in something and I was able to articulate that, you would listen, you would believe,
Mhm.
you would know, be your own expert in your own grief.
Mm.
And then that way people will not look at it as I need to fix her. It's she seems to have this figured out.
Yeah.
And that's an area I'm not gonna go there. She's got it figured out. So because we
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
fix, we want to fix
Yes.
people. So
You've
I
said
think
so
that
many things there that seem to be like a little, I don't know if it's a warning or just a caution sign for us Enneagram nines, who I think we probably would be tempted to stop when it starts to get hard and just be like,
yeah.
I guess I just feel sad.
I guess I'm just gonna go
I'm
take a
just,
nap about it.
I'm just or to, because of the people pleasing nature, to trust them more than we trust ourselves about
Wow.
how we should be feeling or what we should be doing.
yes, perfectly said. I think that's probably more so the client that I see for sure, because what I help that client do is find their inner voice, know their core beliefs. And so once you strengthen the inside of all of that, then it feels like that other area that you're talking, like that control is easier.
Mhm.
But if you were never interested you haven't been that seeker all your life, then it won't become second nature to you. So you do have to work as an adult to strengthen that. And that's really just looking at your talent. Everyone has their own individual talents and skills, and that it looks different for everyone. And then everyone has their own core belief that was presented to them in a lot of imprint when you were younger, 1 through 7. And so as an adult, you have to really look back on that and say, what am I going to keep of those core beliefs, and what am I going to change? And it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, from, religious beliefs to, that you didn't even realize impacted you, to just, where you fell in your family, what role you played in your family. So I do want to answer your question though about kids, because I feel like I've been working with for the first time, a lot of 14-year-olds, 14, 15, 16. Usually I was working with people transitioning out of high school or out of college.
Right.
So number one, the good news is a lot of the youth they're asking for help. So I think that stigma is being broken down little by little.
Yeah.
But it is being broken down. So that's one great thing. The second thing is they are so intuitive, and people don't give them credit for it enough. I think they know themselves more than they actually do. It's just about building their confidence. And so if they're in a grief position, whether it be literally lost a football game, or they do have a loss of a friendship, or a person
don't get
who
into
died.
that particular college that they're going for is going to be a big thing coming up here in the next couple months.
Yeah,
exactly. Yes. The 3 go-to L's is lend, listen, and lead. So lend questions that are going to be really impactful. So, if it is a situation where they didn't get into a college, let's take that. The questions could be more of okay, we didn't get in. First of all, how does it make you feel? Like what about this college would you be grieving of that loss? Because that's what loss is. So it's almost like a teaching moment. Like, did you know that loss, there's grief in that? So, so what about this college would you be grieving the most? And then listen. So then you want them to be able to just dump their emotions. Okay. And have that space. And even if they don't want to dump it on you, then buy them a journal. I love letting people just take them to Target. Target has the cutest stuff, right? So take them to Target, let them buy pick out their own journal. I even like to look at their own pen. I mean, make it something very personal, and then say, hey, if you need to go into your room, scream in a pillow, because that's okay. Journal dump everything that you had, your expectations, what you wanted to get out of that. What were you seeking in that college, truly? Because that is not for you, but there is something that is. And this life experience is telling us that. It's telling this isn't for you, but there is something else. And if we just sit here and do nothing about it, we're never going to find it. So then, of course, leading by example. There were so many times my mom and I, when I was in college, there were some things that popped up along the way, and she could relate to them. It was the first time that my mom and I were able to have a conversation as a young adult, her, adult, and there be a relatable feature there that really helped. And it was an explosion of a new relationship that was really cool. So don't think that you have to keep all of your life experiences when you were in your 20s to yourself. Utilize those. It doesn't have to diminish theirs, like you were saying. Don't none that diminish theirs.
You went through that. Guess what happened to me?
You don't know what. I mean, I had to go through. No. Yeah. It was more like, if I can do it, you can do it. You know, like
Yeah.
this is the circumstances. So I think that being that listening ear, having the really important questions, and you'll find the questions along the way, but questions are going to allow them to really think about it. So what that does though, this is the cool part. If you start that early, even in your teens, you'll see that when they come through their 25, 30, whatever, that they'll go back to that experience that worked for them. So we always have a starting point of
Hmm.
for grief. Like what helped us cope with the first breakup and whatever we
Yeah.
faced? What
Mhm.
helped with us when we lost our first animal? You know, so there's always going to be a starting point for all of us. So their
Yeah.
starting point could be this example. And then what did they do that really helped them? And of course, again, the support that you've given them is really important too.
Yeah. Such good advice. And that's
I
we were
know.
actually going to ask you because your most recent book about the grief around the loss of a pet, we just happened to have a dear, dear friend who
Yeah.
lost her beautiful puppy a couple of weeks ago. And
Wow.
but I think that a lot of the advice that you've given here is similar to the advice that we would give around any kind of grief, whether it be
Yeah.
pet, job loss, career loss, personal loss. And you also gave some really good recommendations for what not to do.
Yeah. Well, you
um,
guys helped me
Yeah.
in that one too.
but as someone who always feels at a loss for what to do when someone is grieving, like not trying to insert myself too much into their business, but not trying to
Right.
not respect or ignore what they're going through, like how does one feel that out? Or are there some just general rules of thumb for how to be part of that process for them?
Well, you definitely said the right word of filling it out. So if it's someone who you have known your whole life, I think that if you have any reflection of your own of how you miss that person, well, that all of that is welcome. I will say, unless there was a very difficult, complex relationship that those people had, then it gets into just how can I support? And then you follow that up with, if you don't know it, these are some ways that I would like to support you.
Oh.
Mhm.
Food, even if you're acquaintances that you just met, but yet they have a loss, just saying, hey, what night do you want me to bring over this? And be very specific, just showing that Southern hospitality that I
Mhm.
feel
Mhm.
like, is there and always has been. But I will say, I'll give you an example. We're all sitting in the church in my hometown. I'm from a very small town. You might have heard the accent there, but um, so we're sitting in the church and this lady comes in and she's the character. She's like one of the, she's the funny one of our group. She just pumps in and she's like, well, this effing sucks. And of course she says the whole word. I don't, I don't want to jolt your listener, but just she's like, well, this effing sucks. And I was like, it does. I think that at the time it just felt so inappropriate and appropriate at the same time in a church of all that, like I was like,
Right.
that felt so good for someone to say that it just sucks. And
Mm.
Gives
so,
you a release to be like, yes,
yes.
yes.
So even if you want to offer up that this is not a good experience and that you are here for whatever needs that they need, that's good. And then of course the check-in. I mean, I have people check in to this day through text on her death date, on her birthday, so I think that they're
Mhm.
just having
Mhm.
those check-ins
Mm,
are really helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
severely helpful.
This
great
is amazing. I
advice.
want everybody to read the books.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to continue this conversation at some point because I just think it's important. I think we're in such a weird phase. We've been saying it for years now, but like life is weird right now. Things are strange and a lot is happening in our world that
Mhm.
it's hard to even begin to comprehend and acknowledge all of it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of grieving around what could have been the past 2 or 3
Right.
years that we didn't
Yes.
Oh,
get to do. So, yeah.
Right. Right. And
exactly.
how could we have done this differently? Did we mess things up? Like, it's just, yeah, there's a lot of grief. Like, a lot of was lost in the last few years. And
Mhm.
I just think
Absolutely.
people need we all need help finding our way through it.
Right.
Yes. Oh, okay. Well, where can listeners find you who would like to continue this conversation directly with you?
Sure. So my website, Coach Megan Young, MEGANYOUNG, it's real easy. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok and all the social medias that Coach Megan Young.
Right.
The books are on Amazon as well. That's if you want something in the comfort of your home, even a starting point, those are really great for starting. Or even if you've been grieving for 10 years but haven't processed it correctly, it's a
Mhm.
great starting point. So it's something that each of those books I actually go back to because again, grief when you've lost a loved one is forever in a lot of cases. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
my sister died 12 years ago, but she would be 40 in this past December, and it was a really hard one.
Oh.
I didn't even expect it. So I brought out a lot of those coping skills and practices. There's a lot to name in there. So
Mhm.
Mhm.
um, things that will actually, if you're one who wants kind of like a dieting toolkit,
Yeah.
that's kind of the purpose of that.
That's a great point that it doesn't go away. Have you seen
Mhm.
that? I'm sure you've seen it. It's like a image of the grief doesn't shrink, you just get bigger and your life gets bigger around it. And
Yes.
it's
Mhm.
always there.
Yes.
Yeah. It's that acceptance too.
Yeah.
Um, But thankfully, I will say I have a lot of resources too. So there's been tremendous strides in studies in last year and this year on grief, like science-based studies that are just changing the way we see grief. So know that resources are getting better, that we're understanding it better of how the composition of your brain and how it really impacts it.
Mhm.
So it's a really good time to find what kind of therapy works for you because that's different for everyone.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
All right.
Ah,
Well,
it's
I
great
feel like
advice.
it's kind of a rough transition into now it's time for Look, Listen, Learn.
I know, right? Well,
But no, I think that's great. And the people can, like you said, in the comfort of their own home, they can use your books, or if they're ready to take that next step, reach out to you. So we'll put all
Yeah.
those links in the show notes. But yes, even though it's not the smoothest transition, now it's time for Look, Listen, Learn.
Here we go.
We're just silly.
I,
But yes, for anybody who's a new listener, welcome. We are so glad you're here. At the end of each show, we like to spend a couple minutes on our Look, Listen, Learns, where we talk about some things that we're either reading or watching or learning about, or a great invention that's been brought into our lives. But we don't like to put our guests in the hot seat. So, Missy, do you want to start with your Look, Listen, Learns?
Sure. I just read Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. Have either one of you read that?
No.
mm-mm.
So good. It's about it's a novel about a character named Elizabeth Zott, and she is a scientist in the 50s and 60s, and it is about trying to exist in a man's world that is not
Oh,
ready for
wow.
her.
Nice.
And it's just a lovely, lovely, well-written story. And I teared up a couple times in it. And then when it ended, I was like, oh no, it's over. So
Oh,
I loved it. I highly recommend it. And we recently watched Fortune Feimster's special. Do y'all know who Fortune Feimster is?
no.
She's a comedian and she's dang funny, man. She used to be on Chelsea Lately, and
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
trying to think where else I know her from. She's had parts in a lot of Mindy Kaling shows. She's dang funny. So her latest special, and I did not write it down in my notes. I will find it and put it in the show notes. I can't remember the name of it, but it's on Netflix and it is a good one.
Awesome.
So what about you, Megan? What do you look, listening, learning?
Well, it's funny. It's like I'm not going to give any lighter answers. No, I didn't purposely just fill my books up with stuff about death. It just happened. But
Me
I
too.
just read a book. Well, the book I'm currently reading is called "How We Live Is How We Die," and it's very interesting on just how to live in the moment, how to be present. These things that really do
Mm.
kind of matter, and it's just a completely different look on that in general. And then, I mean, there's so many Netflix shows that I love to literally schedule just to be kind of mindless shows. And
So
so
necessary.
the Wednesday Adams, the
Oh,
Wednesday,
yes.
it was really good. It was really good. I wasn't even expecting to watch it. I was like, let's just mindless. But and then I was like, oh wow, this is okay. I'm into this. Um, and there's a book. I'm losing the name of it right now.
We can put it in the
But
show
it's
notes.
yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. But it's basically this mortician who travel the world to look at different places of how they grieve and the funerals essentially.
Oh,
Mhm.
And it's mind blowing how other countries really take the stigma out of it and celebrate someone's life. And what
Yeah.
they do is just so extravagant and special that it makes you want to redesign what that looks like for you. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And she's super funny. And so to have like a mortician that's super funny and
Right.
yeah, it's
Right.
great. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, people aren't always like, "Those morticians, so
No,
funny."
I've read
Yeah.
a statistic that the morticians are the happiest career. I think Oprah told me that once. That as far as like people life satisfaction and just their level of
Really?
happiness, morticians.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, I
And I
can't
could
even
see
imagine.
that.
And
I could
Oprah
see
wouldn't
that.
Maybe
mind.
they just see the finality, so they're like, "Well, I'm gonna enjoy it while I'm here."
Yes, or they
Yes, they're
just spend
reminded of
so
it.
much time like in that the healing and the grieving
Yeah.
and just that it's
Yeah.
a continual process for them and that's I don't know, there's
Yeah.
got to be something healthy about that.
Yeah.
Good for your
Absolutely.
brain.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Awesome. Well, what about you, Suzanne? What are you up to?
Okay, so my look is also my learn. Oh my God. So, my friend Allison, who is a literary agent and knows all kinds of like editors and amazing people and like publishers of magazines and all these people, has started a book club, and somehow I'm in it. And
'Cause
which
you're
I
amazing.
already knew I was going to be like this little random, like, just, I don't know. I don't know. I was already questioning my place in
Oh,
this
don't
book
question
club.
it.
Okay, but no, but I knew it was gonna be fun because these are all I've met many of the ladies before, and I was like, this is gonna be great, even if I don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
Right.
So we get to the first meeting, or I get to the first meeting late because I was making dinner for the kiddos. So show up, crawl over everybody, just kind of sit in my place, and everybody's talking about this book, which I had not got the memo or the email. Well, apparently I had gotten the email. I did not read where it said what the book was going to be. So
Uh-huh.
since it was the first meeting and nobody had mentioned a book to my knowledge, I just assumed it was going to be like a meet and greet, like a first kickoff. We were all going to talk,
Yeah.
set some ground rules about what the what the meeting was going to be. And then she sent in an email the day of, and she's like, I like to start the meetings with a couple of quotes. And I was like, oh, I guess we're just going to spend the meeting like really digging into these two quotes. I don't know. They're going to be great quotes. But then I get there and like everybody had this book in their lap, which is tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
I have seen it, never read it.
So literally everybody else got the memo but me. And so they're just and they're not just talking about the book. I mean, they are literary agent, editor level talking about the book. And
What was
so
the consensus? Like, did it make you excited to read it?
everybody liked it. Everybody liked it.
Okay.
But, I'm just like, I can only nod and smile my way so far through this meeting before I like someone's gonna catch on that I don't know what the hell is going on. And then so one of the women goes to leave, and so Allison's all like, oh well, before you go, let's do a quick introduction around so everybody, say who you are and what your connection is to the literary field and what your thoughts are on the book.
Oh no.
And so it goes, which was actually the perfect out because I wasn't going to try to pretend I knew. I was just trying to
Right.
figure out like when is the best time. And since I showed
To
up
announce.
late, they were already in the mid discussion, so it wasn't like the most perfect time. So yes, I just came right out and told them that I have no idea what any of you are talking about because I did not read this book.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I am making it for the last time. But it did make me realize that like if I did not see that email, what else am I missing? So I've
Oh.
spent the past couple of days trying to get control on my inbox, getting rid of
Smart.
stuff, unsubscribing, because this was not an email that would ever like I call it going below the fold. Like once it goes below the
Mhm.
fold and I don't see it like right in front of my face, it's like it did not happen.
Right.
So it made me worry what other things in my life are going below the fold and I'm not catching on to.
I know.
But also just made me realize just how much nonsense I'm cluttering my brain and my energy with that's coming in through my inbox, and I'm giving these people permission to bug me on a regular
Right.
basis, and I just don't.
And the
like
assault
it,
is
so.
nonstop. I mean, it
It
never
is.
ends.
It is. And especially with like all the college stuff, for some reason, they also email me
Yep.
in addition to Zoe. And so
Mhm.
all the colleges that are not on her radar anymore just was like unsubscribe, unsubscribe, unsubscribe. And
Yeah.
so it felt very good. It felt kind of like a waste of a day yesterday, but then today when I felt a lot lighter, I was like, no, that was time well spent. So just a reminder that you give people permission to be in your inbox, and do they deserve that permission?
So
Give it a
true.
thought. So yes.
So true.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that is mine. Oh my gosh, this was such a
Awesome.
great
Oh,
conversation.
good conversation. I have so much to marinate on.
I know. And I'm
Appreciate
just
that.
I'm so grateful for all that you do and all
Yes.
the healing that you help people through. And I think it is a conversation we need to have again, because we usually think about grief when it's too late, like after someone has died, and we think of it in that singular vision of
Mhm.
death when there is so much grief. As far as kids that missed proms 2 years ago, jobs that we're not getting, or visions of
Yeah.
life that could have been lived, all these sliding doors,
Right.
lives that.
Right.
So yeah, there's just a lot of different ways to think about it in your life, not just around death like we typically do. So
Yes. Thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I hope you just keep seeking, digging, doing all the things, because as moms, I feel like we can get so overwhelmed and
Oh,
overloaded. It's
Mhm.
always the second thing on our list, not the
mhm.
first. So
Or the
Right.
third
just
or
the
the
little
fourth.
things,
Yeah.
like start with the little thing and acknowledge it, and you'll see the changes that can be made.
I love
It's a
that.
great reminder. Oh, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great rainy afternoon.
Yeah. My
Thanks.
hair is drying.
Mine
All right.
is too. I was messing with it.
Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and ... podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you know someone else who could benefit from the episode, please be sure and share it with them. And while we're begging, please subscribe and rate us wherever it is you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in our show notes or over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the A-N-D spelled out. In between shows, find us over at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. The links to that group and all of our socials can be found at momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you more than you know. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.